We're back at the Students for Liberty Conference in Washington, D.C. And now we want to talk about the budget. Government has to spend some money. How much? David Boaz says this is our biggest problem.
I look out at young people here, and I think what my generation and the generation older than me is leaving for you. In 1980, the national debt of the United States was $1 trillion. That was a lot of money. But in just 30 years, it's gone from $1 trillion to $14 trillion. And you know, you might say if you have to win World War II or solve the Great Depression, maybe you need to run up a debt. We haven't had a World War II or a Great Depression in the past 30 years. We've had a pretty prosperous period, and yet we've run up $13 trillion in debt. Every president does it. Every Congress does it. They spend on all sorts of things. They spend on the military. They spend on farm subsidies. And the big thing they spend on is what they call entitlement programs. And they call them entitlement programs because they want everybody to think you're entitled, and therefore they can't do anything about it. But the fact is, everything in the federal budget was voted in there by Congress, and your generation is going to pay for that through taxes that will destroy the economy or inflation that you will have to pay for.
All right, you're clapping, but you want to throw the old people out on the street? You know, that's what entitlements are. Yes, ma'am.
Karina Zanat from the American University in Washington, D.C. A lot of my professors seem to think that even when politicians spend money in seemingly wasteful ways, we should be okay with it because every dollar spent is $1 that goes towards income for an American citizen. What are your thoughts on that idea?
What your professors fail to see and the politicians fail to see is that every dollar they spend is a dollar that is taken from somebody else. And it's the... It reminds me of this book your group puts out. What your professors won't tell you, it's the selected works of Bastiat, and one of his stories was the broken window theory, that somebody breaks a window and our politicians, Harry Reid, would say, wow, that creates 2 jobs, the janitor to clean it up and job for a glassmaker to replace the window. But what he doesn't see is the money to pay the glassmaker and the janitor were taken from somebody who might have bought a shirt or a pizza or gone to the movies, and that takes away jobs. And your professors apparently don't get that.
And it's not just a wash, because it's not just that, well, John doesn't have the dollar, now I have it. It is that the private sector will spend and invest the money more effectively, more efficiently. You will get more jobs and more wealth creation when money is spent by people in the marketplace than when it is spent by politicians.
Brian Green from the University of Chicago. My question is, what do you each think both of the political feasibility and ultimately the effectiveness of ratifying a balanced budget amendment to get federal spending under control?
Well, politically it's a real challenge. Economically it would be a good idea. Government should not be able to spend more than it takes in. Some economists would make the case that, well, in some years you should run a deficit, in some years you've run the surplus. Well, we've been running that experiment now for 30 years. They never run the surplus. So now that we know that they will only run deficits, we should stop them from doing it.
Hi, Meg Patrick, George Mason University in Fairfax. According to the Austrian business cycle theory, the bust
Let me interrupt you here. I mean, the Austrian business cycle theory. And how often... I don't get to hear that very often, so yes, go ahead.
Couldn't you call it something like the happy business cycle theory? It would sound more compelling.
So according to the Austrian business cycle theory, or the happy business cycle theory, the bust is a necessary flip side to a boom. So do you think the injection of fiscal stimulus into the economy disrupts the signals necessary to fix the current problems?
It sure does. I mean, the signals necessary are failure. And if you're not allowed to fail, you don't get the market signals to behave in a prudent fashion. And they didn't, and they loaned like crazy, and they're doing it again.
You know, if you get drunk, you have a hangover. I'm sure there are some of you who have tried the theory, just keep drinking. But you can't keep drinking forever, and you can't keep the bubble going forever.
And sadly, when politicians get drunk, other people get hangovers.